Welcome, welcome. This is the Enlightenment Show, and I'm your host, Lauri Schoenfeld. This is where Chicken Soup for the Soul meets the artist way with Nancy Drew. Our guests today are Ali Kamanda and Jorge Redmond, authors of Black Boy, Black Boy. We're going to be chatting with them today all about their new book and how fatherhood inspired this story. Welcome, gentlemen. So excited to have you here today.
Thank you for having us, Lauri.
Yay. Thank you so much, Lauri, for taking the time. Really appreciate this.
Absolutely. I loved your book. I was telling you before the show, my teenagers and I sat down together, read it, took turns doing pages each, and the discussion that we had was phenomenal. So I'm excited to dive in and have this discussion of what brought this story to the forefront of creating it. We'll start first with Ali and then move to Jorge with the same question. Ali, can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Certainly. Not one of my strong suits, but let's get started. My name is Ali Kamanda. I was born and raised in Sierra Leone, West Africa. And at the age of 13, I was one of the fortunate ones who was able to escape the country right before the start of our Civil War. My family and I relocated to the U.S., lived in Denver, Colorado for a while, then moved out to North Carolina and went to college at UNC Chapel Hill, graduated a Tar Heel, go Heels, and practically moved out, I would say, to LA for a little while to pursue a dream in filmmaking. But then ultimately I found a true calling and I got into nonprofit work. I currently work for Salone Rising, and I do nonprofit work out in Sierra Leone, in my home country. I'm happily married to a beautiful and lovely lady. Her name is Julia Kamanda. I have two amazing kids, Sienna, who is 11, and my son Sakani, who just yesterday turned 10. So those are, that's the blessings of my life right there. And I am honestly just super thankful with the blessing that, I would say my life has and in what we're doing right now, and just happy to be here.
Blessings. I love that. I have an 11-year-old as well. That's a fun stage of life. Parent.
That's a good way to put it.
Interesting, fun. They blend together sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
And Jorge, we'll turn that over to you, that question of telling us a little bit about who you are as well.
Yes, so my name is Jorge Redmond. I am born and raised in Asheville, North Carolina. And so it's just grateful to be here. A little bit about myself. I had grown up with the inspiration of wanting to be a professional soccer player, and got the fortunate experience of being able to travel around the world during high school representing the United States in the youth national tournament. Grew up in the mountains here in the South, and was able to, after I graduated at Carolina, was able to travel around the world. I went to Africa, and then went to France, as well as Australia. Got to get the travel bug out of my system before settling back home. Came back home and I started teaching, and quickly realized that as much as I loved teaching, I couldn't raise a family teaching. And so I decided to go back to school, wound up going back into getting a law degree, wound up going to Atlanta to pursue that law degree. And after passing the bar and practicing down in Atlanta for about 5 years, decided to move back home to Asheville. I wanted to move back. My mom at that time was going through a bout with colon cancer. And so I wanted to make sure that I came home with my kids, her grandkids, and made sure that they had a relationship with her. And so she was the driving force behind sort of who I am. And so I'm now here in Asheville. I am used to be a practicing assistant district attorney. So I used to prosecute. And now I'm actually started my new role as a attorney for the Sheriff's Department here in Asheville. So I'm super excited about my new position. Along with that, I have a beautiful wife, Sierra Redmond. I have 3 kids that keep me busy and up every single day. I got my eldest, who's in 10th grade, 15, about to be 16. I've got one in middle school, 12, about to be 13. And then I have my son, just like Ali. He turned 10 about a month ago. So I am a full house. We are always ready to rock and roll.
George, is your 15-year-old a boy or a girl?
It's a girl. Her name is Opal.
I have a 15-year-old girl as well. So again, we'll go back to the fun and interesting stage of life.
Oh man, it is. It is. Wow.
Always exciting.
Yeah.
Never dull moment. Ollie, can you tell us what Black Boy is all about?
Well, it's just in its simplest form. It's just a fun introduction to Black history, and it's a book of inspiration and aspiration. It's a story that really comes from our hearts because it was inspired by a very tragic event that led George and I down a path of recognizing that we needed to do something for our sons to inspire a sense of identity in them so that they would be able to take on life's journey as best as that they could. So it really is just an ode to the great men in history who have come before us, that have paved the way, as we would say in the book, for young Black boys as they move through life in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
George, when did you and Ollie decide that you wanted to create together this amazing book, Black Boy?
We call this our COVID baby. Right? It's kind of what came out from, as Ali had mentioned, a sort of tragic situation. But COVID allowed me to be able to think outside of being in a courtroom. My day was usually taken up with handling cases in front of a judge throughout most of the day. So what COVID allowed me some freedom to be able to enjoy some creative space with my brother Ali. And so initially it just came about where the inspiration from the murder of George Floyd, along with our responsibilities as fathers and wanting to make sure that we are doing our best for our kids and making sure that that they have anything and everything open to them as they look to succeed in this world.
Mm-hmm. We'll start first with George and then turn this over to Ollie. As you both have mentioned that you're both fathers, how did that have a big part in what you decided to create, the content, the messages, the affirmations that you place within this book tied to being a father?
Well, for me, my father wasn't always around. I kind of joke around that Papa was a Rolling Stone. And so for me, it was, he had kind of led me down a path of what a father shouldn't do. And to make sure that I was present and not substituting that with presence, but actually being present and participating in something that we, Ali and myself, wanted to create not only for our sons, but for Black boys in general, who perhaps may not always have their fathers present. That they still have individuals that can inspire them and give them hope. And so this book was written to our boys and to all Black boys, but it's written for all boys and girls. And so the hope, again, is that the connections that you can make as a parent is something of being able to pass down history and allowing someone to be able to understand who they were, where they came from, in hopes that they'll be able to shape their future.
Absolutely. Ollie, how do you feel that fatherhood on your end inspired that creative element of the messages you wanted to put in the story?
It was that sense and feeling of responsibility. I think it was at the point where, as we just stated, when Mr. Floyd was murdered, we both, as young men, maybe for that first time, ironically, in our own lives, just really felt like this had gone past a slogan. You know, when we would hear the cries of "I can't breathe," we actually felt that as we were talking about this, you know, and that really struck us, because then we recognized that full weight of responsibility in being a parent, because now, you know, we have younger kids who are growing up in this society that would be perceived as different, you know, in the eyes of some folks. So I think it was at that very moment that we were inspired to create something that, as we said, would honor their own identity, you know, because for us, we had recognized, as for a lot of folks, and growing up, we didn't have a lot of literature that spoke to our existence, that really celebrated our lives. And that reality of representation mattering was so prevalent then, because it could tell you that you didn't see yourself then as being a part of this thread of what makes the world successful, you know? So wanting to make sure that we could instill that into our own kids, I think really became that igniting force. And what better way to do it than to really focus in on what their identity stems from, which is rooted in Black history. And so we found that opportunity then to connect that with the stories of the amazing accomplishments of so many great men who have come before, you know, us, that have basically paved our way. So, you know, we were hoping that we could use this as a way to encourage our own boys. And then ultimately, as George said, not just Black boys everywhere, but just kids in general, you know, to believe in their capacity to do great things so that they too can seek out this path and become chain makers in their own right.
I really love what you both said of being those change makers, but creating a different change for the future generation. That's so crucial and so important. Ollie, I'm going to ask this question of you first and then turn it over to George.
Okay.
Why do you think that it's critical to learn positive messages about Black history?
Well, I think it's mostly for, not just for a matter of self, but I think as a society, the more we can understand and at least celebrate the humanity of Blackness, it gives all of us that sense and ideal of that we are all one, that we all really matter, you know? Because what gets lost in a lot of conversation are these accomplishments and contributions from Black people in history. And so I think it's reaffirming for kids to be able to see that, so that they know their own worth, because they can believe what somebody else has achieved. It's something they can also aspire to do, you know? And our hope would be that through a message like this, because if you can start at a young age, that's when, you know, you really have a really good chance of reaching a young mind, you know, and being able to instill in them some inspiration and some self-worth. So we just truly hope that that's a message that will resonate and that it can translate to kids, you know.
Absolutely. What do you think, George, to add to what Ollie said? Why do you think it's critical to learn about these positive messages in Black history?
To change the narrative, change the pathway. So before I went into law school, as I said before, I used to teach. And when I used to teach, I used to ask kids, what is it that you wanted to be in life? And the responses I got were, I want to be a baller and I want to be a rapper. And so this book is an ode to all sorts of individuals who have done wonderful things across many spectrums of our society. What we want kids to understand is that you don't just have to be a baller or a rapper. You can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be a pilot, you can be anything you want to be. And don't corner yourself into a two-lane path of success. And so what we hope is that these boys go past what they see on the television, which is either an individual is an entertainer, or an individual is an athlete, or an individual is a criminal defendant in a case, or some sort of bad figure on a movie. What we want them to do is be able to understand that people that came before them were able to do great things and overcome huge obstacles. And so what they have in front of them right now is a chance to be able to not only duplicate that, but perhaps do more and change the way not only history looks at them, but history looks at Black boys in general.
I'm curious, George, as a teacher, Did you notice that once you started opening up that conversation piece and allowing the kids to understand that they had more possibilities, that there was more wonder and willingness to have those conversations with you and others?
Yeah, it was weird. Like no one ever kind of asked them what
Mhm.
else, because I don't end with what is it that you want to be, and I always preface it, well, what else? What else do you want to be? Because I think people get tied down to almost kind of staying in their lane, quote unquote, or feeling like they can only be one thing. We are multi-dimensional. You can be an athlete and an activist. You can be a preacher and a lawyer. I mean, you can do multiple things. And so to make sure that I was able to communicate to the students that I taught that there are endless possibilities, and to get them thinking of that. And I think that's kind of what this whole thing is, that this book is about, is to have them think about perhaps things that they may not have thought about, in hopes of educating them as to Black historical figures and as to careers, right? Because we can't all be athletes, we can't all be ballers. And so having that conversation with them allows us to steer into more of a productive way of society.
Mm-hmm. We have a question coming in for both of you. Julia Slack, welcome, welcome. She asked, how did you two meet? Great question. So Ali, we'll start with you first on your perspective on how you met and turn that over to George.
Well, yeah, rightfully so, because this was, I do enjoy telling this story. My best friend Casey and I in high school, we also played soccer. We were at a two-way school, which is a smaller school. And when we got to Carolina, when we got to Chapel Hill, we had heard of this other high school phenom, all right, who played soccer. We'd heard of this Jorge Redmond, because this name started with a J, all right. So it was just interesting for us because we wanted to find out who was this most sought after individual that was coming into Carolina, the most decorated, we have all ever heard about. And we wanted to see this person. So I remember Casey and I literally we went dorm hunting, and we went looking for George. And it was so, I would say, refreshing, but also surprising when we were introduced, and, we opened up this door, and I always say this, like, he was fresh out of practice. The dude was sweating, shaved head, but he also had on green contacts. So again, I was like, man, and just chiseled. So I remember being like, man, this dude, not only is he a good soccer player, he's good looking. I was like, we don't really like this dude. But he was Black. And I was like, well, hold on a second. I was looking for this Hispanic guy. I thought his name was Jorge. But anyway, long and short of it is that just turned into, I would say, the relationship of a lifetime. That's we go around and we say we are brothers from another mother, and our families are just really intertwined, and we're just very close. And we've cherished that moment ever since, because from that moment on, and I can still picture it, Carmichael dorm at Chapel Hill, once we met, we've definitely almost sort of been inseparable since,
Mm-hmm.
That's how we met, over soccer. And to this day, I still hate him for that.
So, George, what was your perspective when you opened the door?
Shoot, I should have gone first.
That Ali was stalking me. What I take from meeting Ali was how genuine he was. And this identity that I had really only read about. I don't think I had, when I grew up, had an African in my school system. So I only read about things. I only had these ideas of things. I remember asking all these stupid questions in college, and him just educating me on some of my immatureness at that point. But his culture, his family, everything that, big shout out to Dorcas. I love his mom, Daniel. I began to eat their food. I began to go over to the Kamandas, usually on break or anything. I became one of them. And it was seamlessly. It was something that was so easy. It felt organic and natural. And so I will always remember the peanut butter and chicken rice dinners and the cassava leaves.
Yes.
freezing those and having Mama Dorcas come over and having Daniel as well. I think, and I don't know if we'll ever get to it, but Daniel, Ali's dad, played a huge role in kind of getting us to where we are and where we were in college. And so having his parents be active and being able to be present was a wonderful family for me to be able to join while I was in college.
Trying to make me cry, man. I love you too, brother.
I love that so much because I don't have a connection with my parents. And so I know what a cool feeling it is as well to feel like you're just invited in to get that nurturing and that homeness and just that sense of love and joy. Even if it's not blood related, it's still family, like that essence.
From the get-go, yeah. It was just great to see our parents, both, especially our moms. We would just show up and say, hey, mom, and without even batting, like, who are you talking to? His mom would just embrace me like, yeah, and you'd go over and she'd make sure you had that plate that you wanted to eat of her casserole. And I mean, it was always love from the beginning. And, so we're going to ride this thing till the wheels fall off and it's, and have our kids continue that journey. Yeah.
What is the peanut butter chicken thing you're talking about? I have to know.
I'm glad he brought it up, so I get to share some of my culture. In Sierra Leone, we create, it's called groundnut soup, from peanuts. Yeah. But here we have to call it peanut butter. So if I went around saying groundnuts, a lot of folks would ask too many questions. So the nuts that come from the ground. But yes, peanuts. So it's made out of peanut butter and with chicken, and it's just a stew that we eat with rice. Very delicious. We survived off that in college because my mom would make that and freeze it, and that's what we would thaw out and cook some rice. And So yeah, memory lane. Love it.
I'm gonna pull up your book and show some pictures because. I mean, we have to see, first off, the illustrator did a phenomenal job of vibrant. Look at how beautiful this is, guys. Beautiful, beautiful colors and dimensions. And the theme on each page is so beautiful, guys.
Yeah. Ken Daley.
Ken knocked it out.
So beautiful. I mean, and what I also love too is each page that we have, I'm going to show a few more, but not only is the illustrations brilliant, really, the writing that you both did to tie to these fantastic affirmations of different spectrums of what George had mentioned, that you can be so many different things and how you bring in different careers, different areas was so creative, brilliant, and very inspiring. Well done.
Oh,
thank you, Lauri.
Thank you for that. But so glad you highlighted that part too, because I mean that stands out. You can see it. I mean, when we got that the first drafts, I'll let George speak on that too from Ken. That's that first time when you see your words come to life. Yeah. It's an amazing feeling as a writer, because then all of a sudden it's real, But with the way he portrayed it, I mean, when we say knocked it out of the park, it's out of this world for us. It's so vivid, and yeah, I don't think we could be any more blessed to have been fortunate enough to come into his circle. He's a talented and a brilliant artist. Yeah, and we were very fortunate that Source Books, was able to get him onto this project. So lucky. Yeah. Oh yeah. Ken Daley.
How did you feel, George, when you got, I mean, like Ollie said, as we're all authors, there's something magical about, writing the story and telling the parts of your heart. But then again, getting the illustrations and seeing a different dynamic to bring it together is really magical and joyful. How did you feel?
Lauri, I mean, to be truthfully honest, right, Ollie and I never had envisioned being authors, right? I mean, it was crazy how this inspiration came about and how easy it was for us to be able to collaborate and be able to put together this manuscript. And then to see what Ken did. I mean, I'm getting chills right now. I'm thinking about when I first saw it, I immediately thought about how bright this is. And that's what we wanted to showcase, right? How bright everyone's future should be. We know that children's books need to be of color and need to show vibrance of all sorts of arrays. I think Ken used every color in the palette possible. I mean, I clearly do. It's his illustrations and the colors that he used to help blend and showcase the flow of this story was remarkable. And as Ali said, we couldn't have asked for a better illustrator to illustrate our debut book. It is full of joy and full of color, and hopefully brings light to the situation which we're trying to promote, which is positivity and hope.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. When you guys were writing, and I'll ask you, George, on this first, when you were writing the book, there are multiple themes and affirmations that you put in here, and they're all individually so powerful. Together, they are just inspiring. Were these some of the things that you felt needed to be shared specifically or weren't talked about enough that were positive affirmations that people needed in this time?
I think so. I mean, I think right now diversity, equity, and inclusion is on the forefront of everyone's mind. But more importantly, what we wanted to do is showcase individuals that were essentially hidden. And we also wanted to make sure that we didn't just go over the same sort of, as Ali likes to call it, the Fab Five, right? The same sort of five that you get every February, which is MLK, Rosa Parks, Frederick Douglass, George Washington Carver. The list can go on, but there's not that many on that list, right? And it's like a sort of radio replay. And so the thought is that we can be inclusive of individuals that hopefully people don't know about. I mean, the whole idea of writing a book is to educate. And I've known several people that have picked up this book and like, oh, I don't know that person. And that's a wonderful feeling, because then at that point, people are able to do their own sort of research and be able to figure out what it is that they have done that's contributed to society. And so being able to articulate that and being able to use that in this type of book, we thought would be great for kids, especially at an early age, right? I mean, the thought is that you learn to read through confidence. What better way than to find a rhythm, which is what we did in this book. It was a shout out to Brown Bear, what do you see? But to find that rhythm, find that cadence, because when you find that, then you feel confident in yourself. And so that's what the whole goal of making this not a chapter book, but a picture book.
Absolutely. I like that you brought up George Brown Bear, because I did when I was reading it with the kids. I got that little essence of that feel of I see, as you bring that up. Awesome. Ollie, what do you personally think were some of the messages that you wanted to bring in here, and why was that important to you with the specific affirmations that you have?
I think it's all just harped around positivity. What I love with that title, it says celebrate the power of you. It's being able to affirm that, each individual just has the capacity to do great things, and so what we wanted to affirm is that it's within you. You should just believe in your own capacity. So anything is possible if you put your mind to it, right? And a lot of times what we end up seeing, or what we hail as greatness, sometimes gets, I think, I would say, doesn't get as much attention for how, someone becomes great. We might just think that it just happened and because this person did it. So for us, it was really choosing and using particular folks through history so that we can also harp on the choices that these individuals got to make, because that's what ultimately separates all of us. We all sort of have that within us, but not all of us make certain choices. And I think that's what we wanted to show and to highlight with each individual. So when you go through it, and in fact, we started with Colin Kaepernick for the reason of one, being relevant, but also as that quick jolt to make sure that people were paying attention to the subject matter at hand and not the distraction of the noise that's around it, right? But you look at the choice that a man like that made, and recognize that at that moment in time, every single one of us, even those three of us, we all had that choice within us. But did we make it? No, he did, and stuck to his convictions. And with that has been able to inspire, a lot of us to understand that, yeah, if we want this world to be better, we have to do something. You can't leave it up to the next person. And each of the individuals in the book have that own contribution in their own way to society, but it started with the choices that they decided to make, and the belief they had in themselves, and they worked hard for it. So, I mean, for us, that's what stood out and what we wanted to make sure we put in.
Well, you definitely did that, and you did it very well.
Oh, man, thank you. George.
You're so welcome. We're going to turn it to the inner child question segment. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. First question. This is going to be for both of you, but we'll start with Ollie. Ollie, in what areas do you like to shine?
Do I like to shine?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, man, you said inner child. That's a hard one. Do I like to shine?
Hit it with a bang. Okay.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I think it's just being good to other people. I think to me, that's that one area I do love to shine. It feels good,
Mm-hmm.
and if I can do that or make a difference in someone's life, then I feel like that's, worth life, that's worth it. So.
Absolutely. George, where do you like to shine?
In my inner self and as an inner child, it's to keep it simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
To love life, to have fun and smile doing it. There's so much out there in the world to see, being adventurous and doing some things that aren't always comfortable is what I like to shine at. It allows me to be able to understand a sense of accomplishment.
Mm-hmm. Those are some great answers. I love it.
I thought this was going to be easy, Lauri. Come on.
I'm just glad I went second.
You made us have to start thinking, boy. I was like, oh, shoot.
You can't get a book about stretching and soaring without making you stretch and soar.
You are so right. This was meant to be. We're doing this. Thank you. Let's go.
Second question. We'll start with you, George, and go to Ollie. George, when you were a kid, who is someone that inspired you?
My mom. And she still inspires me. Unfortunately, she's not here, but she was my inspiration and has always been my inspiration in being the person who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Dude, you make us cry, bro. Love you, man. That's great. Let's do it.
Who inspires you, Ollie?
Mine's always been my sister. She's the one who came before me, and I have been able to see life through her accomplishments and her hard work and her ethics. And I think maybe I took it for granted, but I always knew as a kid, I was bold enough or brave enough to do something because I saw my sister do it, so
Mm-hmm.
It was never somebody that's outside of my inner circle. It's always been within that, man. But she's the top one on that list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Before we end today, this question will be for both of you again. We'll start with Ollie first. What is some advice that you can give to our listeners and viewers on living a creatively abundant life?
It's to, as they say, you bite into that thing and just, suck out all the juices. When we take a look at what's happening in contemporary society, the truth is that life is just so special, and it's such a blessing to just have that privilege of our daily breath, but there's a way that we can connect with each other. There's a way we can learn from each other, but there's also a way we can contribute to society. And some of the best ways to do that is through creativity. And so my challenge and advice would be for folks to find within them what it is that they enjoy doing and make it count and just go out and go after it. Just remember that we are all part of that same fabric and this thread, that's really being sewn together as we go through this life and through this journey. And as history might look back, you're going to want to make sure you've left something behind that others will remember you by and would say that, yes, this person was able to contribute this to society. So mine is to live it to the fullest. Don't take anything for granted. Enjoy it, and for those of us who are privileged enough to live with the freedom that we share, especially, again, like I said, when you see what's happening around the world, take nothing for granted at all. Take nothing for granted.
Amen.
Well said, Ali.
George, what would you say how our listeners and viewers can live a more creatively abundant life?
Well, creativity is enlightenment. And that is the essence of life. Embrace that organic feeling that you have inside of you to do creative and artistic things, and enjoy that time that you have. I believe our life is already as structured as it can be for the most part, and so having it not be structured and living outside of those sort of realms is something that some people find a bit difficult and a bit uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean that that's something that you should shy away from. Actually, you should go towards it. A good balance in life is using your creative mind. And in doing that, you're able to tap in not only into your heart, but into your soul. And it allows you to be able to feel good about the things you do and about yourself. So any sort of advice I would have is listen to your heart, listen to your mind, stay creative in everything that you may do, because that's your brain thinking outside of the box. And so those types of things makes waves not only here in the present, but in the future, and embrace that.
Yeah. Well said, George.
Oh.
My man came to play today. Yes.
Thank you so much both for being here today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you both about Black Boy, Black Boy.
Oh, Lauri, the pleasure is all ours. For my own self, I would just say yes. Thank you, honestly, for just the time and for sharing space with us. This was really special. It's a great conversation. Thank you.
Likewise, back to you. And George, where can our listeners and viewers find you if they have any questions about Black Boy, or about what you're up to?
So what I'm up to, pretty much, I'm not on social media as much, and Ali will always say this.
And you got the question for this, man. I love how irony works.
I was feeling it when it was coming to me. I was like, "Oh, how am I going to answer this?" So there's not much for me to understand about, I guess, how to get in contact with me, because I'm pretty much, if it's not for Ali, if it's not for the book, I'm pretty private. I've got 3 kids, I got a loving wife, I got a dog. Like, we are always on the go. And I don't usually like to post things. I usually try to enjoy those moments and not try to capture it with being on the phone as my.
So George, the short answer is
Ali will have that answer for us.
No, Lauri, our socials, we are on Instagram. It's Black Boy Picture Book. You can always get in touch with us also through our publishers at Source Books. And I'm on Twitter. George is on LinkedIn under our names. And one of our new accomplishments that we would say we are excited about is we are in the process of trying to work with Authors Unbound. So if anyone is looking to get us into schools, to come and speak to your kids, definitely get in touch with them, because we would love the opportunity to be able to present this to as many readers as possible. So, but yeah, definitely our most prominent position right now on social media is on Instagram at Black Boy Picture Book.
Thank you, Ali.
Perfect.
Yeah, no, that's I take the sacrifice. I'm on social.
Go get your copy. It is a fantastic conversation piece for all ages. Congratulations to you both. And George, presence is so important with family. Honestly, taking that time to pause and really be with yourself and your family is very needed and intentional. So thank you as well. Both of you have a beautiful rest of your day. And for those of you who watched and will also be listening to the replay, remember as you go about the rest of your week to find the things that are working for you. You are the creator of your own story. What steps are you going to take next? Have a beautiful rest of your day, everyone. Bye, George. Bye, Ollie. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauri.
Thank
God
you.
bless.